Wow. Well, thank you for having me. This is it's really an amazing experience being here and listening to all the speakers before me. And before I get started, I just would like everybody to take a deep breath. And I'd like to follow that up by letting you all know that you're doing great. You really are. And I think oftentimes when we try to dedicate our lives to service, we often forget to take a deep breath and recognize how great we're doing. And we're up against a lot of really challenging issues. Working at causes.com, every issue on the planet is represented on our platform. We show up to work and we'll see a campaign that's taking off. For example, right now there's a campaign on gendercide in India, in China. You learn about that issue, and there's an amazing documentary called It's a Girl. I recommend it. Has anyone seen that by the way? So if you've seen it, I mean, you watch it and you just go, wow, like, that's an issue that I have not been thinking about, and it is a really important one. So I just think that as you move forward in a life of service, especially being as young as you all are, to remember to stop sometimes, to take a deep breath, and recognize how great you're doing. So if that's all you take from this little 10-minute talk, I'll be happy with that. So I think two things I want to cover in this short time, and then get to the group sessions. I'm really excited to sit down with all of you. Is two things. One, I recognize that you're called college students, so coming up for you soon is going to be the reality of finding work. And so I thought I would share a little bit about my story. That you did a great job. You gave me an extra 5 minutes through that introduction, so I don't need to go through all of it. But when I went back to school, I had an amazing experience. My wife, who was here last night, was truly inspired by all of you, especially your 1-minute introductions. That really made an impact on her. I went and visited her. She was down in Chiapas, Mexico, doing a community studies internship. She went to UC Santa Cruz. I think there's a slug here, right? And I went down there, and I was sort of, unlike you guys, I was totally a mess. I was 21. I had no idea what to do with my life. Didn't really believe much in what I could offer this world. And I was down there and I was working with some of the Zapatista community there and just volunteering where she was. And I got really close with one of the guys there, and he basically said to me, he's like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "I'm helping out, like trying to do good." And I haven't really done a lot of that. And he said, "Well, go back to your country and make a difference." I was like, "Whoa, that's really powerful." He's like, "Did you graduate from college yet?" I was like, "No, I did. I dropped out." And he was pretty upset with me. It was probably one of the most impactful moments of my life, one of those defining moments that sets you on a course that you don't look back, you just keep moving forward. And after that trip, I went back and enrolled at San Francisco State. I immediately took every course I could on political organizing. On one of the teachers that she was speaking of, I took a class called India's Gandhi, learned all about his efforts in India. That professor had a huge impact on me, and I'm sure all of you have teachers and people here that you'll meet that will have those impacts on you that you take with you on your journey. And from that point on, I realized that I wasn't clear on how I was going to make an impact, but I'd made a commitment to be of service. And I share that with you as you sort of figure out, what do you do after college and then go and find a job. And when I got married young, I know I needed to get a job to provide. There wasn't a clear career move for me, so I did what most people do: is you go to Craigslist and you look for work to pay rent. Basic stuff that you guys will have to deal with in a couple of years. And for me, I just looked for service-oriented jobs, and it landed me at a job working in a group home, working with kids who were in the foster care system. And I had no experience with that. I had taught summer camps and had sort of basic skills around working with kids, so I was a good fit. And so I started working there. I had to do overnights. I had to do things like hands-on restraints. A lot of these kids were suffering from emotional disturbance. Some were on the autistic spectrum. And so I learned about some of the most impossible behavior changes that you could try to make in your life. Every day with those kids was a journey to try to just figure out an insight into how does this kid figure out how to make a small incremental change in their life so that they hopefully one day could live with a somewhat normal life, be a contributor in society. And then through that journey, I sort of could no longer, got to a point where it was very difficult staying in the group home environment, and so I ended up moving into teaching, and I worked in a school for similar students and similar programs, and through that ended up in, as a special education teacher in Santa Rosa, California, not too far from here. Part where this rambling is going is that, the consistent theme through all of that was I just want to be of service. I just wanted to help out. I knew I had, a blessed life, more privileges than most people in the world, and no matter what, I had to feel like I was being of service. And so for me, being here and the role that sustainability has played in my life over the last 5 years really started when I left teaching and joined Adam Warbach and started doing employee engagement. And I would be totally honest with you, I know there's a finance major in the back. I knew nothing about business. I knew even less about what it meant to be an employee in a big corporation or in a big retailer like Walmart. And so I had to use some basic skills around how to help people make behavior change. And I think for all of you who've been going through this program over the last several months, like, you guys have come up against it and have realized that, you may think recycling is important, but this person doesn't yet. And so, really quickly in the last 5 minutes, I want to give you some simple tools that maybe you guys have already been experiencing, but put a little formula around how to help people make behavior change. And so the first really important thing is obviously, what's your issue? What is the thing, the defining thing you're trying to get people to do? We can use recycling as a good example. So once you have your issue, you have to really be creative around what are the different insights and the real different motivators that might get somebody to make that behavior change. A good story to articulate is, we would do trainings all over the country, and I was in was it Vidalia, Georgia, sweet onion capital of the world. Anybody been there? Nobody's been to Vidalia, Georgia? Wonderful place. But I walked into this training of 100 Walmart employees, and we were both from San Francisco, me and my colleague, and we went, this is going to be a tough day. And I started talking to people, and I recommended anytime you do an event, try to canvas, try to talk to people before you go up on stage. It makes it much easier. And I realized there was a consistent theme. All these people went to church. They cared very deeply about this world and about brotherhood and stewardship. And so I started the whole training by saying, who here goes to church? Everyone's hands goes up. Everyone felt a lot more comfortable. And what we all came to understanding was that, my ability to get them to take on personal sustainability practices, which was what the whole program was about, PSP, was about finding what would motivate them to make that change. And for them, it was stewardship, and it was a belief in God, and belief in doing essentially what the Bible instructs. And so some could say that's manipulative on my part to take something that I already knew that they cared about and using that to find a common goal. But in the end, it was the insight that helped me find a common place for them to make the behavior change. The other part is content. So you got like the content master back there. Let's give it up for Mr. Eco. Content is huge, story is stuff. I mean, without the content, the work that you guys are now able to do started with having a really amazing piece of content. So don't underestimate the power of content. So that's 2. Number 3, once you have great content, a great insight, you're gonna have to work on distribution. You're gonna have to get that out there in the world, and that's what some of you are so amazing at, especially now with the birth of social media, Facebook, Twitter, causes.com, which I'll probably talk more about in the small groups and save that for offline conversations. And then email. Don't underestimate email. It's the old silent assassin. People still use email. People often start thinking Facebook's the only answer. And then the last part, I'm sure I'm running out of time, number 4 is collaboration. It's fundamentally impossible for any organizer in the history of humankind to get anything done without collaboration. And I think collaboration often gets it gets used a lot, but often not executed well. And I think one of the key components to collaboration, and something that I'm committed to next year, so anybody here, and hopefully we'll have some offline conversations about how we can all work together, is that you have to genuinely hope that the partners that you're bringing on are as equally successful as yourself. I think when people approach partnership from a very, this person's gonna help me make help me meet my goal, that there's something inherently selfish in that can break down the connections of that collaboration over time. And I think the best collaborations are tightly aligned around a central issue. And if you have 5 nonprofits all working together, those 5 nonprofits are all going to have to figure out how to fundraise and get the money they need to keep their operating expenses. So each nonprofit sort of has to honor that and figure out ways to collaborate where there's enough to go around. I have one question now after that rambling. I think I have maybe 1 minute. How many people here want to have a life where they're committed to being of service to the world? And you should look around, because everyone's hand is up. And it will take all of us, it will take every person in this room and across this planet who's committed to being of service to make the world what we're hoping to make it. And I think, with all the pressure that's on us, I still, I want to end where I started, which is take a deep breath. You're doing great. You're really remarkable individuals. I'm grateful for you to give me this opportunity and give me this gift to be able to speak to you all. And I look forward to speaking to you all in the small groups. Thank you very much.